I've got quite a few slides to go through, so I'm going to go through quite fast. If you have questions, please take note and you can ask me later, yeah, because I'm going to talk very fast. Architectural design failure can have many, many different origins, but I have narrowed it down. Everything that is a failure of the architect can be narrowed down to one of five things. It's either operational or performance, it's constructional, it's organizational, it's contextual, or it's aesthetic. And I'll start with the top one, with an explanation of a project that I did. How do I move ahead? Oh. This is a high-rise building I did in Bangkok in 2019. And the client came to me asking, saying that he wanted a building, a high-rise, that you could open the windows the whole day, even at night, and that the wind can blow through. You see this cross-ventilation, because he said he read somewhere that I was giving an interview that the cross-ventilation is very important. So the first thing I did was to study the wind directions throughout the whole year, over the course of 50 years, to understand where the prevailing wind is in Bangkok. And in relation to the site, this is the building that was built. And the idea was that it was convenient that the building elevation faced the main thoroughfare junction leading straight to the center of Bangkok, which is 10 minutes away, and that the prevailing wind is in the northeast to the southwest direction. So the side walls were built very, very solid with very little puncture, and the main opening going right through the living room and the dining room and the kitchen was connecting the wind in this manner, so that whatever building is built on either side, also the building has protection against, because the solid walls, small windows, the good view is facing the northeast and the southwest. So this is basically how I started. The idea being that this is one floor and two units on one floor. The idea that the living room, dining room, and two big gardens will be treated like a front garden. And at the back, the services will be treated like a back garden, with the house sitting in the middle. The house meaning the storerooms, the toilets, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, all the things that are not part of the shared living space. So that when you close the window, the big windows on the southwest, and the winds get directed by means of a pressure differential through the back garden all the time and through the bedrooms, yeah. And then you can reverse it if you're not cooking dinner anymore. You can reverse it so that the winds come out the other way at night. And then in the other time of the year, the wind direction is completely reversed. So this was the idea, to use the front garden and the back garden as the machinery for the cross ventilation. So just to give you an idea, back garden on the left, front garden on the right, and the house in the middle, yeah? Except that the big issue is not with the windows facing the morning sun. This is facing northeast. The windows are small and very easy to control. The big problem is with the windows facing southwest. I wanted to make them very big because the issue about a big window was that you could open everything and everyone inside could go out. It would be like one big space. So it was a decision based on aesthetics, okay? Now for this big opening facing southwest, I came up with only one primary drawing, which was three huge pivoted doors with louvers on the top and the bottom, so that when you open it, completely open for 6.8 meters wide and for 5.4 meters high, it would be completely open to the view. Wind can go through, people can go through. It is like part of the front garden, yeah? And I wanted to put the louvers in the doors because when you open it, I did not want to see the louvers. It was all based on aesthetic decisions. This door was never built, and it went through 5 or 6 different cycles, each time getting smaller and smaller and smaller until I did not have my idea anymore. And all after that, because of the time constraint, I could not produce the computer drawings. I produced them on the whiteboard and the sketchbook, all with the details to try to make it work. And it failed every single time until the last attempt. So these were the cutaways we worked. After I did the initial drawing, the shop drawing was produced, and then I would make my notes of how we would actually, these things with the sprigs, those are actually shock absorbers for the biggest lorries in the world. The reason is a door this big in a high rise has never been done before. And no one told me why. So I still kept on believing it is okay to build. But the Japanese and the Germans, all the most technologically advanced cultures in the world, the biggest door that has ever been built, which is a swing door, has only been 3.9 meters. I wanted 5.4. And I kept on believing it can be done. We use shock absorbers. Now, the big problem with a door this big is if it is light enough to be moved, it will be light enough for the wind to blow to cause a horrible accident. If it is heavy enough for you to control, you will not be able to open this door. This is why swing doors are never built more than 3.9 meters. Only under that is a swing door able to be controlled either by weight or by stopping the wind from crushing the head of a small child who is caught there in case a strong wind were to happen, yeah? A squall, yeah? So anyway, this was the workshop that we finally found a subcontractor from Bangkok who was willing to undertake the task, who was, his father was German. He opened this enclosure kind of factory, you know, doors and windows. This is the first door that was built, the shop drawing, and it was so heavy that you can start it going, but the moment it started moving, you could not stop it unless you hold on to it and you drag your feet on the ground. So the whole exercise was completely wasted. Round one, throw away, yeah? Round two, I reduced the size of the door so that I still got the full opening of 6.8 meters wide and with the same louvers, and these were small enough, easy enough to open. But the wind pressure was too great. Every test we made, the door would slam upon itself. I designed a safety feature so that the child's head would not be affected. It was fine, but the door was still too sensitive to be used. So this design was thrown out as well. So I had to design another door, which is a bifold, meaning out of 6 panels, only 4 panels would be open. So instead of the full opening, I only get 4, yeah, which 2 fixed. And the bifold was very good because at the strongest force when the wind and the door is open, it would be the least amount of pressure at the point of impact. So that was okay. And when the door is open, because it is the least surface area to the wind, the wind cannot blow it shut. But the problem is when someone is closing the door and the wind starts to blow, it is completely uncontrollable and the hands can be chopped off. But we didn't know this at first. Together with the safety features of the previous door, which is this one. Oops, I can't go back. Okay, never mind. But together with the safety features implemented here, we went ahead and we started building it on site. After 30 stories, the worst thing happened. A storm came, the worst wind Bangkok has experienced in 50 years, and the door completely came off its hinges. It completely failed. With this in mind, it is impossible to go back because the cost would be more than 10 million US dollars. So using the same sections, I had to redesign finally a door, which was proven to work already from years of experience, a sliding door. So this was what was finally built, what was finally designed. Instead of 6.8 meters, I only had 1/3 of that. And the 2 middle panels open to the fixed ones on the side, 1 panel for louvers for the cross ventilation because other louvers were not possible. And just this single panel of louvers was enough to give the strongest ventilation inside the building. I didn't need any other louvers to make this work. So even though this opening is still 2.5 meters wide and it's very big, I was not happy because I wanted the whole thing to be open when I wanted it to be open, right? But of course, this did not work. And I ended up with this instead. The curtains are hiding the door frame, so it still looks very big, but it is a complete failure in relation to the original idea. You can see the fixed louvers here. This panel here is fixed also. That panel is also fixed. The doors are open to the height, and the curtains, of course, hide it. So it still looks like a big opening. But aesthetically, functionally, operationally, this was a failed exercise. Next, I will deal with 2 issues, constructional and organizational. For this project, I bring you to the British India headquarters in KL in 2004. The site was sandwiched between a very industrial area to the west and a residential neighborhood to the east, with a big highway separating the two. I will zoom in on this part right now to go in closer. The site was this odd-shaped parallelogram. East on the right, west on the left, a big high-tension wire, a elevated power cable to the north, east, and a big existing factory, 3 stories high on the south. So a blank, quite ugly elevation. And then the very busy 4-lane, very, very busy jammed highway, noisy pollution on the east. So what I did was, the project I designed was a building that would close off the ugliness to the south, the noise to the east, and the heat to the west, and leaving the northeast elevation open to the morning sun, and then creating a beautiful garden with a cafeteria out in the garden, and then all this elevation to the northeast gets to open to the garden. Yeah? Okay, the floor plans. On the ground floor, car parking for all the staff in front, separating between the cafeteria in the garden and the main warehouse and on the ground floor. Lobby, eating into the warehouse. The best kind of warehouse is actually to design the warehouse separate from the office. But the clients wanted the office on top of the warehouse. They wanted a one single floor for the whole office so that they don't have to walk up and down. So this is the reason why it was done this way. In a way, this is a mistake because warehouses should not be designed with the office on top of the warehouse. But because the client wanted it this way, I designed it this way, and it works fairly well because at the bottom, there's a main circulation area in the middle with the big stacks all on one side and the other of that. Right in front to the east is where the M&E rooms are, firefighting, gen set rooms. At the back, there's a toilet for staff. And of course, a nice welcome area with a glass wall. You can see through to the working area inside. The roof was basically one single sheet, and I wanted to make it like a wing, like a leaf that fell from the sky. Wow, yeah, fancy, yeah. And there were also skylights cut into it because I wanted natural daylight to light the internal space because it's very deep. This space is almost 100,000 square feet and very far away from the windows, so I needed to put in skylights to bring a lot of light in. The floor, the only other floor in it is a one that's on the first floor. And for this first floor, I have the offices of the big bosses, one boss here, another boss here with her staff, and a room where she can meet to hammer out ideas. This was for clothing, a clothing factory, merchandising, design, and storage. Yeah. So the upper level of the office was all about accounts, her office, the office of her immediate staff, the closest to her, toilets that they share with a meeting room in the middle. This is a lobby that the people coming up can wait in, and they get a beautiful view of the garden and the main meeting room where they've got a catwalk. We can show the clothing, a room behind where they can dress and undress to show the visitors. This is a reception desk over here. At the back, there's another small canteen for the staff. And then you've got smaller rooms for a lawyer, other secondary staff, toilets also that they share. And then the other boss gets his own private toilet and his own balcony and his own reception area. And this is where the rest of the staff is, with the corridor separating between the rulers and the slaves. Yeah. And this is the elevation. So beautiful, yeah? Wow. At the back, there's a big brick wall to hide the ugliness and a big gutter, huge gutter to gather all the rainfall and a line of columns which are bringing all the water down. And if you look on top, how do I go back? Sorry. Yeah. If you look on top, you will see this line of gaps, right? Right on top. And the gaps come down in certain areas, yeah? You see this also in the front elevation, these gaps, and then they come down where the toilets are, and further gaps for the mezzanine, because there's some workers' offices on that side. And you see the gaps there as well, and the brick carries on all the way up. Now, what are those gaps doing? Yeah, why are they there, and what are they doing? It's a common thing from front elevation to back. The reason was I was trying to control aesthetics. On these areas I have above, which are here, I have where I'm putting all my air conditioning units. And the air conditioning units are huge for 100,000 square feet. These compressors are enormous. And I didn't want them all around the building, cluttering up the ground floor, looking ugly. air conditioning must be hidden so the building looks naturally ventilated, right? Cross-ventilated. So I had to hide the air conditioning. So if you look at this diagram here, all of these dimensions about how high I had to make the roof in order to accommodate the air conditioning. If you look at this diagram, the image before is of this area and that area. This is where all the air conditioning is placed, and the gaps in the wall are to exhaust all the hot air out. Okay, and the reason why I needed the hot air, the hot air to escape is because the air conditioning had to be put here and had to be easy enough to service and hidden from view completely. And I wanted to hide it by extending the beautiful brick wall past the line so that the air conditioning compressors could not be seen. Okay, now what is this looking like in the section? This is where the office of the rulers are, the owners of the factory, the chief executive officer, the boss, and the boss's wife. There behind that, there is, and this is what it looks like. Very high ceiling, all the way to the bottom of that, and the corridor outside of the office with beautiful timber filigree. This is where the circulation is, and all of the slaves work in the lower area where the air conditioning requirements are much greater, and so we reduce it by making it the space smaller. What does this mean in section? It means this. It means that these two areas are completely go all the way up, and because of that, that area is low where all the service staff work. This means in the elevation that the area which contains the greatest number of people who can benefit from the view of the garden and some relief from working in an office are blocked from that view by the few people who own the office. This is bad organization because it prioritizes a few people who do not do much work. The boss and the people who run the company do not do the greatest amount of work. The greatest amount of work are done by the greatest number of people in the dark area. So this is really silly because this elevation ended up being very cool, very nice looking, very, very unified in terms of the long slits and the small windows perfectly positioned for the few people who only needed that view. And the rest of them get tucked behind a blank wall, a very unpleasant office environment. If I had been more considerate, I would have put the owners in a different area so they still can have a view on the sides, and I would have created big openings for everyone to be able to appreciate the view better. This is an organizational problem which I still struggle with, the difficulties I had. And this elevation is not exactly ugly. It's not bad because you still have some continuity, but much bigger openings, which at the time I did not like. I wanted it to look like a monastery for work, which is a very, very bad instinct because I was the architect, yeah? Now, another problem, which is operational. The first one is organizational. This is an operational problem. Okay, now, I designed originally what I wanted to be a safari roof, which is the top roof lifted off the air-conditioned space so that because of the air blowing out all the hot air from the sun in the underneath, you have less air conditioning requirement underneath. Now, this does not work anymore, does it? Because from the earlier section, because of the big bosses and the beautiful circulation corridor, the glass needed to hold the cold air in stops the air from circulating. So the only way there's a cross ventilation is in that small space there. Now, that small space there is not open to the most winds coming from the northeast. It is open to secondary winds coming from the east and the west. Those winds are not strong. So what has happened is the whole area in red is blocked from any cross ventilation. So the winds coming from the northeast are blocked, and only the west and the east are allowed some small air, which is not enough to really bring down the temperature well enough to reduce air conditioned loading. And on the east and west, I got these louvers, which are so narrow to stop the rain from coming in. The air also doesn't really go in properly. So what I had to do is I had to put it on the roof, these huge, horrible pupils to drain the hot air out so that the air from the sides could be sucked in through the narrow slits to make the space cool enough for the air conditioning to be lowered. So in the elevator, the section, this is what it actually looks like. But of course, it is not a problem because people cannot see the roof and see these ugly pimples. Now, the worst part of operation is this. I could have used a roof that was continuous from one end all the way to the other. There are factories that use rolled steel that will roll out a roof to the exact profile you want in any length you want. And these lorries are long enough to transport this roof to any site, okay? But because I wanted to use a very, very cheap material to save the client money, I used this ondue line instead. And the ondue line is very good, I thought, because you can also have transparent panels to allow the light through. And the joint does not need special details. It is all part of the material. Now, the problem with these small panels is that when you have a lot of small panels put together, even with 1.5 feet, 450 millimeters of overlap, when it's raining very heavily and the rain is trying to escape and the wind is blowing hard, all the water starts to slow down and back up, and all the water starts to drip onto the ceiling below. So this is what the ceiling began to look like after. Before the construction was completed, the ceiling completely discolored, and never mind the discoloration. This is still quite nice, yeah? But the floors, every time it rained very heavily with a strong wind, this entire ceiling was leaking like a toilet, okay? So I had to pay my own money to change the entire roof to the first roof that I should have used, which is a rolled roof. So operationally, this was a horrible mistake because I wanted a flat looking roof. I used the wrong material for a flat roof that does not work well because it does not even drain the hot air. It allows the water through. This roof not only failed, it has failed so miserably, it is unbelievable. So I had to use my own money to pay for my mistake, okay? And so you got the beautiful looking building that would not work well at all, okay? This is a disaster operationally and functional and organizationally and operationally. Okay, last one is about contextual failures. And I want to talk about a cross I designed for a rural community in Barrio in East Malaysia, almost on the border of Sarawak and Kalimantan. Now, on the flight there, it's a small aeroplane. It is beautiful. And when you arrive there, there's this charm about it. But when you go to the town itself of Barrio, it's not exactly pretty. It sits next to the highland range and the flatlands, but it's already at high altitude. And this is what Barrio looks like. The charming buildings are all storehouses in wood, and the ugly buildings are all in sheet metal and aluminum siding, okay? And they grow beautiful, delicious rice. The food there is better than the architecture. And something happened there many years ago. In 1976, there was a religious revival, and everyone suddenly became Christian. Those who are already Christian became even stronger Christians. Those who are not Christian became Christian. And in order to, the event happened in the schoolhouse in the lower red square. And in order to commemorate the event, they built a wooden cross in the top of the hill up here called Prayer Mountain. So I'm going to bring you there. This is the cross that they built in 1976. It's a small wooden cross, 5 feet high. And over 20, 30, 40 years, it began to fall into disrepair. And they wanted to replace this cross with another cross that was 9 meters high. And so they got an engine. Oh, sorry, before I go on. The top of this hill is a beautiful view. It is almost magic, yeah? But it is 800 meters high. It is very tall. And the last 100 meters is so steep, you have to use your hands. You are crawling to the top, okay? So when they commissioned someone to design the cross, they commissioned an engineer, and the engineer designed them this cross, 9 meters high, made of steel and wood. The steel frame is inside, and the wood paneling is to cover the cross. Now, this cross, if they built it, was going to weigh 10 tons. So they said, we cannot build this cross, 10 tons, this is crazy. And so when this friend who knew me asked me, hey, can you help them? They said, this cross is so heavy, can you make it lighter? I said, yes, of course, this cross is what Jesus already died 2,000 years ago carrying up Golgotha. They do not need to do this again, you see? So I had this beautiful idea, okay? Beautiful idea, I'm so clever, yes? I said, I'm going to give you a light sword that fell from heaven, and it is touching the ground so lightly. You do not need to use a lot of effort to bring it up to the top of the mountain, okay? But I was thinking about this beautiful sword like it fell from the sky on flat ground. But no, this is actually a cross on top of a hill. I did not consider the context. So it was built, quite lightweight. It's not 10 tons, but it's still 1 ton. 800 pounds of that 1 ton was in the concrete footing for this cross, okay? So it is not a light cross. It is very heavy. 1 ton is still crazy. But I use very lightweight aluminum channels to make this beautiful sword that touched the ground. And this is only 25 millimeters at the bottom. It is 200 meters long, but when you look at it from one angle, it is like a sword. Very, very pretty. But of course, the accident happened. You cannot just build the cross standing up. You got to build the cross lying down. When you build the cross lying down, you have to raise the cross. In the Catholic tradition, this is called raising the cross. Now try to raise the cross on a small top of a mountain that is only 12 feet wide and 16 feet long. It is impossible. So while they were raising the cross, someone slipped and he fell. And in order to save his life, he had to hold on to the rope. Of course, the whole bracket bent. The bracket is inside the concrete foundation. It's going up 6 feet high. The whole back bracket bent right at that point. So you can see the cross leaning, yeah? Now, even then, you could take off all the rope and the cross did not fall down. It does not look, it looks quite straight here, but it's actually leaning on the left by 8 inches from the top to the bottom. It is still standing, but if a strong wind blows, the whole thing will collapse. So I had to design a fix, an amendment to fix my poor sword. The sword became an angel, an ugly angel with a skirt. So I had to put a steel dowel through the middle with steel cables and tighten them to the bottom, and they built it, and it looks like that. You can see the tiny cables. Still, everyone says it's beautiful, but you know, it's a clumsy, cute angel. It's not the elegant cross anymore. Yeah, it failed in the view because I did not consider the context. Now, what is the context? Is it only the mountaintop? No, it is the fact that after they finished it, they wanted to light it up so that people could see it at night. It was not only for people to see when they were up there. So my context of using a sword was completely stupid because I was thinking, steel, lightweight, I use a cross because people can see how beautiful the cross is touching the ground. But the context was not a sword to be seen when you're on top of the hill. It is about the light. And if I had been intelligent and I not made the stupid mistake of the material and the context, I would have used a plastic pipe. 9 meters long, jointed, completely lightweight for fiber optic to light from the bottom, and it would have been more beautiful at night than my stupid steel cross. And that covers everything except aesthetic. And the reason why I do not need to talk about aesthetics is because all of the other mistakes are usually because we are only trying to make something the way we want to make it look. To make it look what we think is beautiful. But beauty is the most stupid thing to pursue if you are not taking care of operation and performance, construction, organization, and context. Thank you very much.